Buddy Carter, Big Pharma's favorite son. Carter made a fortune as a pharmacy owner. Then Big Pharma sent him to D.C., funded his campaigns, giving Carter over $200,000. And he protects their profits. Carter voted against negotiating lower drug prices and capping the cost of insulin. Now he's trying to undo a law that lowers your drug costs.
How are we going to undo that when we get into the majority?
Buddy Carter is for Big Pharma, not us.
I'm Wade Herring, and I approve this message.
All right, we're back another Saturday at noon. It's the Watchdogs on our Black Media Network, and we have a great show today. Welcome back, Mr. Hall, and happy birthday to your wife, Tanya Hall.
Thank you, and I'll tell you said so. We got Wade Herring here today. That's the topic.
Oh, yeah.
Man that's going to topple Buddy Carter. We got to get Buddy out of there.
Buddy is not your buddy. Go ahead, Wade. How are you?
I'm good. We're excited. We're in this final stretch to Election Day. Early voting starts Monday. We're encouraging everyone to go ahead and vote. If you can vote in person, vote in person. I know, a lot of people like to wait until Election Day. Traditionally, I have, but I plan to vote Monday because we don't want any problems. We don't want anybody trying to say you did it wrong or what have you. So everyone in the district, everyone in our state knows the importance of this election. So let's get out the vote and let's vote as soon as you can starting Monday.
That's correct. I know I'll be one of the first ones there. First thing Monday morning, I vote early every time so I can get it out of the way because I'll be having too much to do. And you might get caught up in something on Election Day. So we ask everybody to go and vote early.
That's right. And so, I think, Wade, your signs behind you kind of tell us what you're doing. But for those who may not see the sign or who may be visually impaired, if you could tell us, what you're running for and what your plan is.
Sure. So I'm a Democrat. I'm running for Congress. That's United States House of Representatives in Georgia's 1st District. The 1st District is the entire coast of Georgia from the South Carolina line to the Florida line, and it goes as far west as Waycross, Jessup, and Baxley. It's 15 counties. It's a big district. Buddy Carter is the Trump Republican incumbent. He's been in office for 8 years. He wants to be in office for 10 years, and our goal and what we will do is deny him that opportunity and retire him this November. And I will do that with everybody's help and everybody turning out to vote. I think the people in our district recognize that we don't have anyone in Washington right now who represents us, and we need to make a change. And that's why I'm running, so that this district, all 765,000 people in this district, have somebody who represents all of us and each of us.
Awesome. So what inspired you to run, Wade? Well, tell us why you figure, we know Buddy Carter is this figure out there that everybody says can't be beaten because of the voting makeup of the rural counties. So what inspired you to go after this position?
Sure. January the 6th, 2021, there was a violent insurrection in the Capitol. It's not a coincidence. It was on that day. That was the day that the electoral vote was to be certified. It was clear to me that day it was premeditated. It was organized. There was nothing spontaneous about that. And we know more clearly now that indeed it was organized. It was planned ahead of time. I could not believe that something like that would happen in our country. Left work early that day, something I rarely do, and my wife and I anxiously watched television that evening to see what would happen to the future of our country. And the camera went over to the House side, and there 6 representatives from the state of Georgia stood up to vote to overturn the election. Right on the front row was Buddy Carter, standing next to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Buddy Carter, every member of the military, every employee of government takes an oath, a sacred oath, to protect and defend the Constitution. That's the House of Representatives' primary job. And he failed to do his job. He broke his sacred oath. He broke his promise. And I knew then that I was going to have to do something. And that something turned into running for Congress and being the Democratic nominee to stand up and to hold him accountable and to remind the people of our district, it doesn't have to be that way. We can put somebody in office who respects our Constitution, who respects our elections, and represents all of us.
You know, what you're talking about, Wade, is something we hear a lot of times, and a lot of people become frustrated with what they see at local, state, and federal levels of government. And so your response to this is really critical and important, and that it demonstrates that we can't just sit on the sidelines and complain. We've got to advocate. And so with that, tell us your perspective about being involved and advocating for your constituents when you are elected.
Okay. Well, I'm a lawyer by training, so I've spent a career listening and learning to people, and I will continue to listen and learn, and I've done that on the campaign, listen and learn. And then, though, you got to act and you got to help solve problems. It's not you got to turn that listening and learning into action and legislation and votes. Voting rights. We've got to make sure our voting rights are protected, and I want to make sure the John Lewis bill gets passed. Women's reproductive rights and their right to choose. We've got to make sure that gets protected by law. Mr. Carter wants to criminalize abortion without exception, including no exception for rape, incest, or life of the mother. That's not just wrong, it's dangerous, and it's cruel. And more broadly, affordable, accessible health care for all of us in the district. We know about underlying conditions now because of the pandemic in our part of the world. That's obesity, hypertension, and diabetes. We can do a better job of managing those conditions and preventing them so we live longer, healthier lives, and we bring down everybody's healthcare costs. Mr. Carter opposed the ability of Medicare to negotiate drug prices, opposed the cap on insulin for our seniors, opposed the out-of-pocket cap for our seniors. And as pointed out in the ad that my campaign has produced and put up on television, he said he wants to reverse those successes that we owe thanks to Reverend Warnock and Senator Ossoff, among others. But Buddy Carter has said out of his own mouth, he wants to reverse that, and he's especially interested because he's a pharmacist in raising drug prices. So voting rights and healthcare would be at the forefront of what I'm advocating for the people of our district. There are other issues, but those are the two top priorities for me.
Okay. Well, we know Buddy Carter supported many interesting aspects that are very concerning, and the election deniers. Those guys, and they're popping up all over the country now. These elections, a bunch of them are running for office, and and we have to be able to get candidates such as yourself in the office, because if we don't, then we have people that'll nullify elections if their candidate, if their party doesn't win, or if their candidate of choosing doesn't win. So we got to get people in there that's want the country to continue to be a country that the world can look at. You know, that shining beacon, that the democratic country that everybody can participate and elect the people fairly and squarely. With these new people that are election deniers, I know. What's your thought on that? When it comes to these candidates all over the country that are running as election deniers?
Well, it's frightening, quite frankly. And again, we're at a place in our history that I never thought that we would see. But to your point, right here in Georgia, the Republican candidate for lieutenant governor is Burt Jones. He's not only an election denier, he was a fake elector for Trump. And he flew up to Washington on his daddy's plane to be in Washington on January the 6th. So that, Mr. Hall, emphasizes the importance about when you go vote, you got to vote all up and down the ballot. So vote for Leader Abrams, but then keep going. Vote for Charlie Bailey, who's a great guy running against Burt Jones. Vote for B. Wynn for Secretary of State. Keep on going down the ballot and vote for Wade Herring so we can send Buddy Carter, who voted against the election results, and send him home and let people know you cannot conduct yourself that way in a democracy. I mean, look, in grade school, when we play games, we all learn about winning and losing. And if you lose, you go home and fight another day, but you don't change the rules after the fact and say, I'm really the winner.
Right.
We learned that a long time ago. So I'm asking my fellow Americans to remember that lesson that we all know. And you know, if you tried to change the rules after the fact, you shouldn't be in office.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And we're going to shift gears and talk about, and I'm sure Julius will agree, there are a lot of things that personally impact all of us in the congressional district in the state of Georgia. One, and I'll speak on, and we have a list of things here, but share this story. So I sure it's no secret to people in this that watch our shows that I caretake for a father of 95 years old who lives with dementia and a mother who is 91 and lives with Alzheimer's. And so when we start talking about issues and elderly folks and children and women, it becomes very personal to me in the fact of, first, let's talk about these pharmacy drug costs. That's the first part of it. So it really amazes me that the level of care, right, and the pharmacy costs just to get certain medicines for folks and how astronomically the prices are. I'll give you a great example from my dad. He was recently diagnosed with congestive heart failure. He takes a pill twice a day. That bottle to make his heart pump, $700 for that one bottle. After insurance, I come out of pocket $100. It's very real for Americans. It's very real for a lot of our young people and families in the first congressional district. We know that Buddy Carter is a pharmacist. As we saw the commercial, they're paying for his campaign. Tell us how you're going to change that, because I know you will, and you've done your homework. So I'd love to hear your idea on that one.
Sure. So and let me just interject that it's very personal for me. I have a mother who's 86 years old. I'm blessed she's still alive, but she's in a skilled nursing facility, and I'm the one that makes sure that her bills get paid, and I'm the one that sees what's still left over after Medicare. And I want her to be in this world with her family as long as possible, but I also worry about running out of money for mom. So it's a real personal issue for me, and I know that many of us in the district and throughout the nation have that experience of a relative older or a relative with chronic diseases that has these really high prescription drug costs. So the first thing is we got to make sure that we send Democrats to the Congress that are going to keep in place the Inflation Reduction Act that has already passed, that allowed Medicare to negotiate, that allowed the cap on insulin for seniors, that allowed the out-of-pocket cap for seniors. And so it's going to mean out-of-pocket for seniors is capped at $2,000 annually. That's still a lot of money, but I know, for example, with my mom, it's going to save my mom money because right now her out-of-pocket per year is higher than that. Buddy Carter said, I want to reverse that. I want to get in Congress and fight with Reverend Warnock and Senator Ossoff to expand that insulin cap, not just for seniors, but for everybody. The number of drugs that's listed on the Medicare negotiation, quite frankly, is a limited number right now. I would like to see that list expanded. And, we here in the United States pay 2.5 to 3.5 times more for medication than the rest of the world does. That's wrong. So we can figure out how to continue to lead the way on research and development. And we can also figure out how ordinary Americans don't have to choose between prescriptions and groceries.
Okay. Well, one of the things that everybody's talking about lately, it really hasn't hit home because there has been shortages everywhere. People ordering parts and it takes weeks and months to get them. Inflation has come down, and it has come to us. The prices of food is higher. Gas prices are higher, and that's a concern, especially in those neighborhoods, in those communities where the income levels are much lower. You're still being taxed at a higher, priced at a higher rate than as everybody else, and you don't make as much money. So, what are your views on how we control inflation and
Sure.
what we need to do?
First, I acknowledge the reality of inflation, and I acknowledge the pain and the pressure in the pocketbook that means for everyday Americans. But we've got to do more than just acknowledge it and talk about it. We've got to act and do something about it. So the infrastructure bill, which passed and which Mr. Carter voted against, means more money for the Port of Savannah and the Port in Brunswick. It means more money for the airport here in Savannah. And both of those are very important transportation hubs, very important to speeding up the supply chain that we've heard so much about so that goods get here more quickly. In addition to PAC donations from big pharmaceutical companies, Mr. Carter also gets significant PAC donations from big oil companies. I'm not going to take any PAC money from fossil fuel companies. We need to look to see if the oil industry is price gouging, and if they are, and it appears perhaps they are, then Congress needs to act. Saudi Arabia recently announced that it was going to cut the supply of oil production. Saudi Arabia needs to remember who its friend is in the Western Hemisphere, and we need to re-examine that relationship if Saudi Arabia is going to side with Russia over the United States. The CHIPS bill, which will bring chips manufacturing back to the United States. Again, we won't have to wait for chips to come from China. They'll be made here. Mr. Carter voted against the CHIPS bill. And then this is a longer term solution, but clean energy and sustainable energy. The Inflation Reduction Act provides for that. Mr. Carter voted against it. I just read a report in Forbes magazine, so a very traditional business magazine, that said already the Inflation Reduction Act has encouraged $28 billion of new investment in the United States for clean energy and efficient energy. And that's jobs, expanded battery manufacturing, expanded sustainable energy manufacturing. So again, there's immediate things we can do on supply chain and price gouging, the relationship with Saudi Arabia, but there's longer term things we can do. And in every instance, Mr. Carter has opposed both the short term and the long term fixes, although he does talk a lot about inflation, but it's just talk. There's no action, there's no solution.
Well, gentlemen, what we're going to do is take a quick break and let Wade get a little drink of water. We'll take a commercial break and we'll be back in a few moments. And we're back. And so, Julius, I think you're up next for our next question of the day.
Well, one of the other issues, I know that we briefly discussed it, and we want the women out there to really understand that you're on their side. And abortion is a big issue in this whole country now, with the Supreme Court doing what they did and sending it to the states. I think that we need to make sure that candidates like yourself get in office because you understand. You understand a woman's right to choose. You understand what's at stake here in this country. We don't want people going to try to go to these makeshift doctors and these voodoo doctors trying to get abortions. It needs to be done in a safe environment. So what are your thoughts on abortion now?
Well, the Supreme Court decision was very disappointing. It overturned 50 years of established law based upon the constitutional right of privacy, which is a fundamental right that all Americans hold dear. But since that Supreme Court decision, as you alluded to, the different states have taken different positions, including here in Georgia, passing and enacting the 6-week heartbeat bill. We need federal legislation passed by the Congress to protect a woman's right to choose and to restore that freedom that we've known for the last half century. It's fundamentally about American freedom. And who do you trust? I trust women to make the right decision for themselves. I don't think a politician should be deciding that healthcare, that fundamental freedom of healthcare decision for women. Politicians need to get out of that, and the law since the Supreme Court did what it did and states like Georgia have done what they've done, the law at the federal level should be that women have that fundamental right.
And as we talking about rights, I think when you look at Roe v. Wade and voting rights and all of the rights that provide access, right, are under threat. And another one that's really important to me is when we're looking at voting. Really, it's important because I think what people have failed to realize with Brian Kemp and what he has done with the voting rights here in Georgia and the cheating with the purging of voters, but more importantly, the impact that it has on voting by absentee ballot. And again, when you have a 95-year-old, and as you said yourself, you have an elderly mom, their ability to vote is threatened. People who are disabled and unable to go to the polls, their ability to vote is threatened. So when it comes to voting rights, how do we approach this in a way that gives people access and not restrict access?
Right. Well, you packed a lot in that question. Senate Bill 202, of course, passed here in Georgia in January of 2021. It was a reaction to the big lie. It was an unnecessary fix for a problem that didn't exist. And it impacts lots of people. It impacts the elderly, like your parents and mine. It impacts disabled people. It impacts working people. Someone may work 2 or 3 jobs. They don't have the time to get to the election from 7 to 7. The drop box issues and all of those things, some of the complications with absentee balloting. So again, at a federal level, we need to make sure that voting rights are protected. Yes, I want elections to be secure, but voting rights must be protected. And if you got a big problem, you still have to start somewhere. I would start with the John Lewis bill and make sure that John Lewis bill gets passed. That should be a bipartisan piece of legislation, but let's make sure we pass that and restore the Voting Rights Act to what it was before.
Okay. Poverty and how affordable housing. What are your views on this? I mean, you have neighborhoods that are just being gentrified, and we have to find some place when people are moved out of their homes because the taxes are too high. They lost it because of some other reasons, unemployment or something, and we got to get some affordable housing. I would hope that once you get there, that you would work with HUD to see how we can, get back to where we used to be, where we can get people of low income affordable homes, affordable housing, because you don't see that anymore. Back in our day, we saw that, but now you see they're getting away from that. They had Section 8, but Section 8 vouchers, and it's a waiting list out of this world. We need to be able to build something so these people won't be homeless. What are your views on helping to decrease poverty and increase housing, affordable housing?
Sure. So the current administration has already done a good job of increasing the level of tax credits and increase it for affordable housing and increasing investment in the housing trust fund. But those tax credits are important because that's how you encourage private development of affordable housing. And there's more that could be done, but again, we're in a crisis right now on affordable housing. I want to be that advocate in Washington that has those kinds of issues forefront of mind, and then is working hard to bring those funds and resources and information to our district over and over again, I have heard that Mr. Carter never calls our local elected officials to ask, how can I help and what can I do for you? Believe me, one of my first priorities next January, in addition to the conversations I've already been having, and I have been having those conversations, is to call up our local elected officials and say, what do you need and how can I help? But a big priority is going to be affordable housing and to make sure that we've got a champion in Washington to bring those resources to our district.
Before you ask the next question, Robert, would you be open to leading a delegation to or leading a having the charge of putting everybody in the same room? I know they have these meetings sometimes where they have the municipal meetings for all the cities in Chatham. But would you be interested in having the U.S. reps and the two senators and everybody from this region for Chatham in from the state delegation, the school board, the county commission, the cities from every city, and putting everybody in the room and let's find out how we can work together? Because I don't see these people talking, and they all work in silos, and they think that they can get things done that way. You can't. You got to be able to work together to get things done. So would you be willing to look at how you can do this and call this a quarterly meeting where you get all these people in the same room every time?
Absolutely. I mean, the short answer is absolutely yes. I think the representative for our 15 counties should be a leader, should be a communicator, again, a listener and a learner, but also organize all of that talent and all of that energy and all of those constituents to see how we can work together. You mentioned silos. For those of us who live in Savannah and in the coast, sometimes that might be an issue that we've all seen before. But I think I've demonstrated already with my campaign that what I'm trying to do is bring people together, and absolutely I would want to continue that once I'm elected and in office, and to use that platform to bring people together.
Okay, Rob.
So, Julius, I'm going to change a little bit here, so don't kill me. But I want to talk a little bit about education, and I come from a family of educators. I myself have worked in education and higher education for well over 25 years in a number of roles. And in the first congressional district, what's really important is access to education, and more particularly post-secondary options. And so we have a number of technical schools. We have Georgia Southern University, which in my opinion is one of the best. You got Savannah State University. I see your orange tie there, which again is one of the best. But as we think about higher education, as we think about our technical school options, and our young children in childcare in Georgia, that's a loaded question, but you got plenty of time, and we'll give you all the time you need. How do we make this thing a little better for the people in Georgia in the first congressional district?
Sure. Again, my family is a family of educators. My grandmother in Walterboro, South Carolina, taught third grade. My mother taught 30 years in the public school system in Bibb County, Macon. My wife is a retired school teacher. She started her career here in Savannah at East Broad Elementary. My in-laws were educators in Bibb County and Peach County, which is the adjacent county to Bibb County and Macon. I had a beloved great aunt who taught second grade for 50 years, which blows my mind. So that's very, very important to me. And you mentioned young children, and I think that's one place where we really need to put some federal effort and some federal funds. Georgia's done pretty good job, but we don't have universal pre-K in Georgia. It's a lottery system. That's not right. And we know that we need to start children younger, as young as 3, so they get the right start for the rest of their education in this big, complicated world that we live in. And I'll take it one step further. I think there's a role for federal funding in daycare. After the pandemic, daycare in our country is broken. It was in crisis before. It's broken now, and that's a family issue. That's an economic issue. If mother and daddy can't find safe, affordable care for their baby, they can't go work. So education, particularly for young children, is something that I've talked about consistently from the very beginning of this campaign, and that I will continue to fight for. I recently spoke with the superintendent of Chatham Schools, Dr. Levette. She's got a pilot program for 3-year-olds, but it's dependent upon a grant from a private company. And of course, the problem with grants from private companies is they run out, right? So we need to do a better job nationally to invest in education, particularly for young children. And I use the word invest very, very intentionally, because Mr. Carter is going to talk about reckless government spending. The man who made his money off of Medicare and Medicaid selling prescription drugs to nursing homes. But he's going to talk about reckless government spending. I'm talking about investing in the long term for this country, for our children and our children's children, so that they have the promise of America that the 3 of us had. Some promises have been broken. We need to do a better job. But education is a fundamental way that we invest in the future of this country and that we transform lives.
And if I could, Julius, I'm glad you said that word investment, because we're either going to invest in children and developing them on the front end, or our investment turns into a prison investment on the back end.
And let's talk about the economics of that. It's been a while since I've done the research on how much it costs to incarcerate somebody in the state of Georgia. And people play all kinds of games with these costs. But the last time I did the research, and this was a while ago, it cost $56,000 a year to incarcerate someone in the state of Georgia. That's a great college education, $56,000 a year.
Right.
So let's be smarter about how we use our precious resources, and let's be smarter about how we invest and take care of people. So we're dealing with those things on the front end and not on the back end. And I'm so glad you brought up that example, because it's healthcare, it's education, it's so many things. Let's address things on the front end, or we're going to be paying for broken on the back end.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to do this real quick. We're going to play this commercial one more time, and then what I want to do is, after we come back from your commercial, ask you about military veterans, because what happens is that the military, I have a bunch of military friends who say they vote Republican. They don't care who it is. They never look at what the issues are or anything. They just vote Republican because that's who gives them raises. So while we go to this 30-second commercial of yours, be thinking about what we're going to talk about on, you're going to tell the military families and veterans. All right?
You got it? Oh, you got it. I got it. I got you.
Buddy Carter, Big Pharma's favorite son. Carter made a fortune as a pharmacy owner. Then Big Pharma sent him to D.C., funded his campaigns, giving Carter over $200,000. And he protects their profits. Carter voted against negotiating lower drug prices and capping the cost of insulin. Now he's trying to undo a law that lowers your drug costs.
How are we going to undo that when we get into the majority?
Buddy Carter is for Big Pharma, not us.
I'm Wade Herring, and I approve this message.
Awesome commercial. Awesome commercial.
Thank you.
So address those military veterans and those military families on why they should be looking to vote for Wade Herring.
Sure. We talked earlier about certain issues being personal. My dad was a captain in the United States Army. He was in artillery. He suffered a hearing loss because of that. And in his later years, he had to fight to get the help from the VA that he needed for his hearing aids. My father-in-law served in the United States Army and then was a career Army Reserve. I've had other relatives who served in the military. Right here in our district, of course, we have Fort Stewart, Hunter, and the naval base at Kingsland. And because people come to this area when they're in the military, they fall in love with this area and they retire here. So we have a lot of veterans. I'm very well aware there are two things. I believe in a strong military because that keeps the peace, but our men and women in uniform need to be taken care of. We should never hear about men and women in uniform having substandard housing on base. We should never hear that our men and women in uniform are having to get assistance or go to a food bank because they can't afford groceries. That's wrong. So we need to address that. And then our veterans need to get the healthcare benefits and other benefits that they've earned through their service. And this is so important to me that when it comes time to request a committee to serve on, I'm going to request to serve on the Armed Services Committee. Doesn't mean I'll get it, but that's going to be my ask, because I recognize how important the military and veterans are to this district and to the families of this district, and I want to make sure they're taken care of.
All right.
Yeah. Well, and so Wade, I want to share something with our viewers, and I'm going to talk about marginalized communities. And in the first congressional district, we have a number of communities of color, especially African American communities. You were down in Ware County. You're well aware of what's going on down there. We got a young brother down there doing some great things. Primus Evans is doing some good things. But all of the issues we've talked about kind of impacts those marginalized communities. And what I'm impressed with is you and your team have done the homework. You've taken the time to listen, and it's evident that you are passionate. You understand those views. So I'm asking all our communities of color to stand 100% behind you. Vote early, vote absentee ballot, but to vote for Wade Herring. But tell us what your plan is to really speak to and what you want to do to make sure that these marginalized communities understand that you are in their corner.
Sure. Well, during the campaign, I've made an effort to, quite frankly, just show up, to be in church, to be in neighborhoods, to be at neighborhood associations. And as I've listened and learned, one of the things I've heard is, well, we won't see you again until next election. And let me say very plainly and very clearly, I'm going to be back. I'm coming back. You're not going to have to wait 2 years. I'm going to be back. The Black Chamber, whatever it may be, I'm going to be there because I want to continue to listen and learn. That's who I am. And then the things that are important to me, voting rights. I understand that voting rights suppression disparately impacts communities of color. When I talk about health care, I understand that access to health care disparately impacts communities of color. When I talk about a woman's freedom to choose, I understand that maternal death rates are 4 times higher for Black women in this state. And they're already too high for everybody in this state, but 4 times higher. Education. I understand the transformative power of education, and that too frequently communities of color have not had access to the education resources that they should have. When I talk about why I'm running, I talk about keeping the promise of America, but I acknowledge that the promises of America have been broken or not always kept completely for communities of color. I mean, let's just say it. So I'm going to be, I know that history. I'm going to continue to be an advocate for everybody in this district. I would look, and I'm not looking for a slap on the back. What I'm doing, though, is hard. And I wouldn't be doing this for any other reason than to put this country back on track, to make this country the promise of opportunity that it should be for everybody. You know, I had a career. I didn't need another one. I didn't need a new but I just am so deeply concerned about our future. And let me say this. This is a great country. When people talk about make America great again, that's looking backward at a time that never was. That's wrong. Let's look ahead to the promise that this country can be for all of us. All of us.
Well, wait, I'm voting for you on Monday. So I asked everybody else to go out on Monday and vote. You have my vote and you have my family's vote.
Same here.
So we want everybody to understand that they need to call people, that they need to get people to the polls to vote. Because what affects us here, you'll be responsible for. So we need to get you in office. Buddy Carter doesn't listen to anything we say. He doesn't represent us. He only represents some of us. And we know that you will represent all of us. Mm-hmm. And we want to know, I hope that you're doing those things in those rural communities that are driving the people to come out and vote for you instead of Buddy Carter.
Yes, I mean, I've been to all 15 counties more than once. I've got people on the ground in Liberty County. I've got people on the ground in Glenn County. I've got people on the ground in Camden County. In Camden County, I think people are really upset about the spaceport and Buddy's land deal there, and they should be upset. And I'll be in Waycross between now and election time. We've with our ad, we're spending some extra money so we make sure that the ad gets seen throughout the district, not just in the Savannah TV market. So I'm doing everything I know how to do to reach out and to get the message to the entire district and to let people know across the entire district, you've got a choice between doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing. Now, for your listeners, though, here in Chatham County, the whole district is important. Yeah. But Chatham County is really, really important. Yeah. So folks in Chatham County gotta step up to the plate and help me get across the finish line.
That's correct.
So yes, the whole district's important. We're working in the whole district, but Chatham County, you got to come through. And look, both candidates are from Chatham County, and I feel confident I'm going to win Chatham County. I think people in Chatham County understand what's before them, but we need people maybe who've never voted before. They never voted in a midterm election before. I need those people to go vote, because that's how we assure ourselves that the right thing happens in November.
But you're exactly right. I think the last major, what I call a major election, that's when Daniel and I were on the ballot. We left 70,000 votes on the table, Chatham County, 70,000 votes. So I don't care if you got to go pick somebody up. And I'm talking to the pastors when I say this. Get your church vans out, fuel them up, pick up people, go to the hoods, and get folks to the polls. We got them registered. Let's get them to the polls. and vote down ballot. So what does down ballot mean? Everywhere you see a D, a Democrat, ignore incumbent, look for Democrats and vote Democrat down ballot. It's the difference between your life and death. And what I mean by that, as I mentioned earlier, Julius and Wade, that heart pill that my dad has. If we didn't have that money, he'd be dead. That one vote can protect the cost of that medicine. So are you going to make the right decision to sit home and be lazy, or get out here and protect your life? As simple as that.
We got about 5 minutes left. And my question is, who would want to vote for a guy named Buddy in this type of world these days?
You're so messy.
I don't trust anybody with a nickname like Buddy no more. Wade is my man. So everybody go out and vote for Wade Herring. That's what we have to do to change things in this country. So
well, thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. Again, the campaign here is working hard. We're excited. The feedback we're getting is very energizing, and we're getting noticed. I mean, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is noticing this race. Georgia Trend magazine is noticing this race. The Savannah Morning News has started paying attention to this race. I want your listeners to know there are going to be 2 debates next week.
Okay.
October the 18th, the Atlanta Press Club, for the first time in decades, has picked up this race to include in the debate lineup. That'll be on Tuesday, and Georgia Public Television will carry that, and I'm sure there'll be a link that you can watch if you can't watch it live. And then on Wednesday, October the 19th, WTOC is going to have an in-studio debate. Mr. Carter wouldn't agree to a town hall public debate with me. I don't know what he's scared of, but we're going to have an in-studio debate on TOC at 7 o'clock, October 19th, and TOC has decided to carry it live. They were going to do a streaming thing, but they've decided to carry it live. So there'll be an opportunity for the voters to see us side by side and to hear what our views are about things.
Well, we're standing in confidence with you, and I think I'm going to come by and pick up signs and make sure the 5th district of the county, of Chatham County, takes care. We're going to make sure that we got signs everywhere. So, Julius, any closing thoughts before I play your final commercial? If I don't play his final commercial, Wade, I'll get in trouble.
Well, no, I just wanted to make sure that Wade has told the people everything, and he did that just now. And I was going to ask him to do a close, but he did it before I even asked him. Everybody needs to just go out and vote. They need to go out and vote. You can't vote but once, but go out and vote, and because we don't need those election deniers saying anything. So go out and vote, everybody. And we look forward to having you in. One other thing that I'd like to tell you, though, no matter what the outcome of this election, Mr. Herring, when it is over, we have a sit down, and you, me, Robert, Nick, we all need to sit down and have a conversation.
All right. Well, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for your support. And folks, let's get it done. Early voting starts October 17. Election day is November the 8th. Wade Herring for Congress, and we're going to make history. We're going to make history and change this district and keep that promise of America for the people of the 1st District.
Let's go, Wade.
All right.
All right. See y'all. Go ahead, Rob.
like this. I 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 like this. Like this. I like this.